G'day folks, it's Rob here, and in today's video we're going to be running through some of the common pests you may find in the aquaponics system, like that one there, and also some ways to treat them so you can get more of the tasty veg for yourself and not have to share it with those blighters. Seeing as we were photobombed by a cabbage butterfly in the intro, I thought we'd start with caterpillars. What we have there is a cabbage butterfly caterpillar, and on this leaf up in here we have a cluster caterpillar just behind that little webbing there. Those guys there are actually quite invasive and can cause a lot of damage, so we'll deal with them first. They're from a moth, and it doesn't take long for them to strip leaves. We actually had a fairly bad infestation of those caterpillars on the chili plant here, as you can see by all the small holes in the leaves. I actually found one of the nests on one of the leaves here. What it looks like is a load of tiny small eggs, probably hundreds of them. And once they hatch, they get a voracious appetite and they can devour a cabbage like this one here in a matter of days. And as you saw from the intro, the other pest caterpillar we get here is the white cabbage butterfly caterpillar. They're pretty common all around the world. Now these little fellas, they like to come in and lay their eggs on the undersides of leaves. They're pretty easy to spot. They're just a very small white dot. And yeah, I just go along and just squish them when I find them. We actually have a little parasitic wasp buzzing around. I will mention a few other beneficials, but those little wasps, they lay eggs within the caterpillars themselves. The eggs then hatch and eat the caterpillar's juicy bits, and then they pupate on the outside of the caterpillar before flying off and repeating the process. So they're great to have around. One of the reasons I don't like using a lot of sprays. So to protect the plants from caterpillars, you can use a couple of different methods. You can exclude them by maybe growing in a greenhouse. Another way you can go is using fish and animal friendly insecticides. I use one called Dipel. It's basically made of a bacteria, Bacillus thuringiensis, and it is very safe to use in your system here. It only targets specifically these guys here. The one we buy here comes in a sachet with 10 grams of the powder in it, enough to make up 10 litres of the spray. Now there's no way I need 10 litres of spray for this size bed. So what I've done is I've weighed out individual little bags with 2 grams worth of powder in them. That means I can just whack it in my little 2-litre spray jug and go around not only the aquaponics but the other beds down the back, just to give them a little bit of protection. Now you will notice that the spray does tend to roll off the leaves. Don't worry about that. There will be enough bacteria left on there, so when the caterpillar eats it, it will get into its gut and do it in from the inside out. So it is very safe to have in your system and very effective. Now, looking at these leaves, you may not think that, but these plants here are exposed to the rain. They're outside from underneath the deck. We have had a bit of rain lately, so every time I do spray the Dipel on here, within a couple of days, it just gets washed off from the rain. And another method we like to use is manual removal, basically going through the plants themselves, picking off the caterpillars, and then taking them over for a bit of a snack in the fish tank. Our plants here do look a little bit manky. That's because I've been growing through our summer just for the leaves. We've been using them in the cooking. We're just coming into our cool season now, and that's when we like to grow the heading brassicas, like the cauliflower and broccoli. So these guys here will be coming out in the next week or so for some new seedlings to go in. Now these grasshoppers are one pest that I don't have a control for, unfortunately. The main thing I do with these guys is try and catch them and not let them go and feed them to the fish. Unfortunately, there's no controls that I know that I can spray on here that would be fish friendly. I know pyrethrum will knock them off when they're young, but unfortunately pyrethrum is one that I would not recommend you use in your aquaponic system, mainly because it's very toxic to the fish once the levels get up there, so I stay away from it. So I do hope you're enjoying the video so far, folks. If you do have any alternate methods that you use to control pests in aquaponics, please leave them in the comments section below. You know, it's all going to help the community out and I'd really appreciate it. While you're down there, don't forget to hit the thumbs up icon and also hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And after you've hit the subscribe button, don't forget to jump on over to the bell icon just so YouTube knows to send you a notification when future clips are uploaded. Back to the pests. Just back at this bed here to give you a look at another pest that we get quite a bit in the system, and that is aphids. So these little guys here are sapsuckers and can be a real pain in the butt to control. Some varieties, the females are self-fertile, so they just keep popping out young after young after young without having to mate. These guys can be controlled in a number of ways. I'm rather partial to just coming in and squishing them when I see just small amounts like this on a plant. Other things you can do is make up a basic soap spray using 1 to 2 teaspoons of a pure soap in 1 litre, or that's a quart for you folks in the States, worth of water, giving that a bit of a mix up and yeah, spraying on the plants. Apparently it washes off the waxy coating from the outside of the aphid and they dry out, and the same treatment can be used on thrifts and mealybugs as well if you have issues with them. Now, along with the soap spray, you can use other sprays as well, like horticultural oils or even a neem spray that contains azadirachtin. Just be careful though not to overspray into the water. That can make it back to the fish because it can coat their gills and suffocate them. You may want to lay some newspaper down underneath the plants themselves and then spray and let the paper catch any excess that falls on the grow beds. And as long as you're just targeting, you know, individual little outbreaks like that, you should be right. I do know folks who will spread diatomaceous earth on these guys as well. I don't like to use that in the system because we have other little beneficials in here that I really don't want to kill. Fellas like, whoa, he nearly fell off, this little baby ladybug. That's called a ladybug nymph. And these little fellas, they can look after a number of those aphids every day, as can their parents. So they're really good to have around in the system, and one of the reasons why I don't like spraying too much. I mean, if you get a really bad infestation, you can use the squish method. Squish all that you can and then blast them with the water hose. Just the hose from the tap is good enough as long as you don't get too much in your system, and that will just crush the aphids and the mealybugs and the thrips because they are a soft-bodied insect. But I prefer to encourage these guys. As I said, these plants will be coming out of here soon, so I prefer to boost up the ladybug numbers, let them have a bit of a feast, and yeah, hopefully they'll multiply within the system. So on to another pest, and no, Mike, it isn't a toilet paper tree, mate. This is our RG Amarillo, and we've started to be visited by a common pest here in southeast Queensland and other warmer parts of Australia, the Queensland fruit fly. What they do is they sting the fruit there, and then the little maggots get in there and eat out the fruit from the inside. They hit citrus as well as our mangoes too, so a real pain in the butt. Normally what happens is the bush, for some reason, you can see a little sting mark there, will just drop the fruit. Luckily I've saved these two here before the fruit fly have emerged, and they'll just go straight in the rubbish bin because we definitely don't want them hatching in the yard. So the best way I've found to keep these guys fruit fly free is to bag them, as you've already seen. Thank you very much again, Ray, rest in peace, mate, and Kerry for sending these through. These are little paint strainer bags. They're very common, very easy to find, and I've just used some little rubber tree ties just to secure them in place, and that's enough to keep the Queensland fruit fly and the Mediterranean fruit fly from getting in and stinging the fruit. So might help you guys out. And one of my supporters, Dave from Veneto Gardens, g'day mate, he's actually using the larger versions of these guys to exclude insects from some brassicas he's trying to save some seeds from. So they can be a bit of a multi-purpose tool and handy to have around. I'm actually using a large paint strainer down the back to bag up a whole branch of an RG Amarillo growing in a root pouch just to keep a number of fruits safe. In the past we've had issues with slugs in the aquaponics system. I used to come down at night and try and catch them in the dark when they're out and about, and at one point I was even trying beer traps. Now I found the beer traps, they worked all right, they got the slugs to come to the party, but unfortunately a lot of them had their full, then staggered on home afterwards. The best method I found to collect the slugs was to raise the height of the standpipe so the water was over the top of the media in the bed, and this pretty much will drove all the slugs out of the media during the daytime where we could collect them and then dispose of them. So now onto some beneficials. You might be able to make out there we have a praying mantis. I don't want to disturb him too much, but yeah, we also get beneficials in the patch, so that's another reason why I don't like to use harsh chemical sprays like the pyrethrum and things like that in here, mainly because it will affect those guys as well. And those praying mantis, I mean, they can be really vicious. I've seen them tear apart grasshoppers in the old aquaponics system. In fact, when I find them hanging around the yard, I like to collect them and pop them into the system itself. In fact, when I was chopping it down some Chinese celtis the other day, just to make up some compost in a cage, I found a couple of their Uasikas, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, which are little praying mantis nests. So I've stuck one there in the aquaponics, and there is another one over here, just sitting in some heavily pruned back kangkong, and hopefully those little baby praying mantis will emerge from there and take up residency within the system and look after future pests that might decide to have a crack at our veg. So I mentioned the parasitic wasps before. We do get other beneficial ones in the patch. I've seen them come and collect little caterpillars like this little fella here and take them back to their nests, stuff them down the egg cell for the young to eat once they emerge. And I've also seen them feast on grasshoppers down at the back of the patch. If you get a little bit too close, they may sting you, but I've found that all the varieties we see around the patch predating on insects are generally not very aggressive at all. So another bonus insect to have around the patch. One of the other beneficial animals we've had in the system are little geckos, both the native ones and the Asian house geckos. Now they'd be really good at knocking off things like grasshoppers and the like, but unfortunately they'd also feast on the praying mantis. But yeah, we have seen them crawling around the system from time to time. So folks, if you do use different control methods as I've used here, as I mentioned before, it'd be great if you could leave them in the comment section down below just to help others in the community out. We'd all really appreciate it. You know, even if it's just buying in ladybugs or something along those lines, it's always great to hear what other people do. As always, I would like to thank you all for coming along and sussing out the videos and leaving your thumbs up and the comments down below. I enjoy reading them all and responding to them all. I would also like to thank those awesome folks supporting us through the YouTube membership platform and our own Farm Your Own Yard membership website. Thanks for all the support, folks. We really do appreciate it. But I will pretty much all leave it there. My arm's getting a bit shaky. I do hope you're all well and happy and your aquaponics is booming, and I'll catch you next clip. Cheers, folks. Have a top one. I'm trying to film and this cheeky bugger keeps hanging around. I think it's actually trying to lay eggs on some of the different brassicas around here. That's exactly what she's doing. She just laid an egg right there. Cheeky bugger.